There are many strange and bizarre traditions around the world, and while some of them are simply foreign to us, others are definitely creepier than most and stand out because of their disturbing nature. So that's what we're going to be having a look at today. So here are 10 creepy rituals from around the world. Number 1. Mellified Man. Documents originating in 16th century China describe a ritual process known as mellification. This involves a person close to death volunteering their body in order to create a medicinal cure-all. The volunteer consumes nothing but honey for days, weeks, or however long it takes for them to begin excreting pure honey in all bodily fluids. Eventually, the person would die naturally from eating an entirely honey-based diet. Then, their corpse would be submerged in honey either in a jar or a coffin, and it would then be sealed. The body would then be left for up to a century, and then opened to reveal globular, candied human remains. This mixture would be sold and eaten as a remedy for a range of diseases and injuries. Although this practice can't be confirmed in modern times, Greek writers documented this practice, and the Chinese claimed its original practice to be from Arabia. Recently, many ancient bodies have been discovered mummified in honey, although it was not known if these bodies were intended for future cannibalistic healing. Number 2. Bathing in blood. For centuries, many historical figures have been known to bathe in the blood of other humans. Notably, Countess Elizabeth Bathory was a Hungarian noblewoman known for this practice. She was referred to as the Blood Countess and Countess Dracula. In 1560, she was born into the wealth and privilege of the Bathory family. She was known to suffer from fits, and a historian suspected that a neurological disorder was to blame. After her marriage, her husband was often away at war, and she was left alone to manage the household and properties with her children. It was rumored that she had learned black magic from her Satan-worshipping alchemist uncle and a thirst for sadomasochism from her aunt. After her husband's death and years of rumors and accusations, Bathory was finally charged for her crimes. Upon arrival to her home, a recently murdered woman was discovered along with 2 other living victims suffering from wounds caused by physical torture. It was discovered that she may have tortured and murdered up to 650 local village women, although she was only charged with 80. Witnesses testified that Bathory both drank and bathed in blood of these young women to preserve her youth. This practice of bathing in blood is actually common in historic writings, and has been documented as recently as 1834 in the case of Delphine LaLaurie of New Orleans, who tortured and bathed in the blood of her slaves. Number 3. Self-mummification. Self-mummification is a religious practice by Buddhist monks that requires intense preparation and ultimately results in a preserved and uncorrupted corpse. The practice is not seen as death, but rather of transcendence. It is believed that the bodies will awaken after 1 billion years to hail the return of Buddha and assist in the ascendance of humankind. This process begins with a specialized diet over 3,000 days. This diet is composed of eating nuts, pine needles, tree bark, and sap. It is believed that the toxins and preserving ingredients of this diet are what contribute to the successful mummification, as their combination resembles that of a formaldehyde, and the toxins may prevent pests and animals from consuming the remaining tissue. After consuming this diet, the monk seals himself in a tomb while alive with only a crack to allow air in, and he prays until his death. A bell is tied to him and he rings it periodically as proof that he is still alive. Once the bell stops ringing, the tomb is sealed for 3 years and is reopened. If the monk is discovered to be preserved and without corruption or decay, then he is removed and worshipped. Lack of decay is also seen as a miracle in other religions, including Christianity, where they too display and pray to bodies that do not decay naturally. Despite this practice being made illegal in 1877 in Japan, it continued on. While only 28 monks have been confirmed to succeed, this practice goes back thousands of years in both China and India. You can visit these mummified monks in their shrines today in Japan. Number 4. The Aghori cannibal monks of India. The Aghori are a group of Hindu sadhus who worship Shiva, or the female manifestation of Kali, the goddess of death. Their practices go against traditional Hinduism, as they engage in all that is taboo. Hinduism believes that each deity is a manifestation of the same god, and therefore each of these manifestations are to be satisfied and worshipped, including death. While cremation is mainly practiced in India, there are different types of people who cannot or should not be cremated. These bodies are sent to float down the Ganges River, and from there the Aghori fish them out for their grisly rituals. The The Aghori covered their bodies in the ashes of the cremated dead and eat the bodies of those not cremated. They eat and drink feces, urine, and garbage. They used the top of a human skull as a vessel for their food and drink, in imitation of Hindu deities who have been portrayed as doing the same. They believe that by focusing on God while doing all of these things transcends the filth that they are consuming. They are rumored to have sex on top of dead bodies and possibly even have sex with the corpses themselves. Little is known about this group because they often live in isolated areas and are shunned by other Hindus and locals. Despite this, they are believed to have knowledge of the secrets of healing any known disease today. This group remains practicing to this day and have become a target of appeal in the new trend known as dark tourism. Number 5. Tibetan Sky Burials. Sky burials have been practiced by many cultures over thousands of years, but is practiced by few groups today. The tradition continues in Tibet, and some reasons for this are a lack of trees for cremation because of the high altitude and permafrost, which freezes the soil and prevents burial. This process is done with extreme reverence care. After the body has been prayed over for several days, the spine is broken for ease of transportation and brought to a high point carried on a yak. The body is then dismembered and the tissue and bones are broken and pounded into a pulp. They surround the body with substances in order to attract birds and animals, and the remains are left to be eaten. After the ritual, the yak is set free. This practice makes sense in the Buddhist tradition as the human body is seen as merely a vessel, and it is considered to be a holy act to feed living things with your remains. This practice was done in other cultures by different means, such as building platforms for the body or placing bodies in trees. This was also a practice in Iran, and also done by the Aboriginals in Australia and certain indigenous tribes of North America. Number 6. Endocannibalism and the Yanomami tribes. The Yanomami are a group of indigenous people who live in the remote areas of the Amazon rainforest on the border between Venezuela and Brazil. They are a non-violent tribe whose population ranges from 18,000 to 35,000 people. They practice endocannibalism, which involves eating the flesh of a dead relative after they have died. When somebody dies, the whole village gathers for a ceremony and cry while singing songs. They then burn the remains, and once these remains are burnt, what is left is then mashed and cooked with bananas and eaten by the entire tribe. This is an important ritual that ensures that the soul of the individual is absorbed by the entire tribe and continues to live on. If this ritual is not done, then it is believed that the dead will be trapped forever between this world and the next. To the Yanomami, it is a tragedy if a loved one or family member dies in the forest and their body cannot be found and eaten. If tribesmen are enemies, they will threaten to not eat each other if one dies. This shows that the ritual is highly important to them, and if anything, not eating the dead is what is scary and taboo. Number 7. The hanging coffins of the Philippines. While the hanging coffins burial ritual is practiced by several countries including China and Indonesia, this section will detail the tradition in the Philippines. The Aghori tribe of the Philippines is one of the few remaining groups that conduct this ritual, as Christian influence has changed burial rites in the region. Prior to the coffin burial, the deceased is placed in a wooden death chair at the front door of a residence, tied with vines and covered with a blanket. As the relatives come in, they pay their respects to the dead. The body is smoked or cured during this process, both to preserve it and to prevent odor from coming off the corpse. When taken out for burial, 5 pigs or chickens are sacrificed and the body is prepared by being bent and wrapped in the fetal position, as it is believed that one should depart the world the way they came in. Sometimes, to get the body into the position, bones must be broken. After this, the body is carried to the cliffs by loved ones, and are smeared with blood and bodily fluids because it is believed to be fortunate, and that the skill of the deceased might be passed down to those who touch it. After this, people are sent up the cliff face to carve holes for the support beams of the coffin, and the coffin itself is either nailed or tied in place. The reason for the cliffside burial is both for the body itself to be closer to heaven, and to prevent scavenging animals from eating it. Another strange reason for this manner of burial is because tribal headhunters from rival areas would bring back heads of the dead for trophies, and hanging coffins prevented this from happening. This location is now a creepy tourist attraction that brings in thousands of people a year. Number 8. Nexium cult branding ritual. Nexium was founded by Keith Raniere in 1998 following the downfall of his previous company, Consumers Byline, after it was deemed to be a pyramid scheme in court. Following his previous business scandal, he created Nexium, which offered executive success programs, aka ESPs, to wealthy elite as a way to reprogram negative behavior and as a self-help program. These intense group therapy classes ran for 12 hours a day, sometimes weeks in a row, and cost up to $300,000 per set. Later, one could sign up for the University, which cost $5,000 a month. Self-proclaimed members were made up of almost 17,000 members. This program of paid-for classes resembles the fundamental practices of Scientology, although it consists of a structure of people whose sole purpose is to recruit new members, which is reminiscent to Raniere's previous pyramid scheme. The strange thing about Nexium is the large number of wealthy and famous people who have taken these classes, including Sheila Johnson, Anna Christina Fox, Richard Branson, and Grace Park, just to name a few. Members of the group must call Raniere Vanguard and believe him to be an evolved being. Later details emerged regarding an inner circle of women that served closely with Raniere. To join this group, women were forced to turn over nude photos of themselves or incriminating confessions as collateral to prevent them from leaving. Following this, new recruits were in a slave-master relationship with whomever brought them into the group, including Raniere himself, along with Alison Mack, who is seen to be second in command. After joining the group, the women were strapped naked and blindfolded to a table, and a symbol of the group was branded onto their pelvic region, and they were given no anesthetic or painkillers. The strange symbol, which looked like a hieroglyphic, was later revealed to be the combined initials of Keith Raniere and Alison Mack, much to the horror of ex-members. In March 2018, Raniere was arrested on many charges related to Nexium, including sex trafficking and conspiracy to commit forced labor, as these slaves were forced to work for the group without pay. The charges alleged that Raniere created a secret society of women whom he had sex with and branded, with the initials, coercing them with the threat of releasing their highly personal information and taking their assets, displaying a disgusting abuse of power. Alison Mack was later arrested and faces the same charges. Number 9. The Threefold Death. The Threefold Death is an ancient Indo-European human sacrifice ritual which consists of killing one individual in 3 ways simultaneously, by strangulation, drowning, and stabbing. This ritual is written about in Welsh and Norse myth, along with the writings of Caesar's conquest of Gaul. At least 1,860 bodies have been found that have died in this manner. These remains date from the 1st to 4th century AD. The most famous of which is the Lindo Man, one of the hundreds of well-preserved corpses that reveal the marks of this form of sacrifice. Some of these bodies were so well preserved that they have skin and, in some cases, clothing and shoes. It was a common practice of the Celts to make offerings of weapons and artifacts in bodies of water, which may serve as the origin of the Lady of the Lake. Luckily, this ritual was abandoned over 1,000 years ago because of how intense and extreme it was. Number 10. Ancient Egyptian retainer sacrifices. Many ancient Egyptians believed in an afterlife, and within this, they believed that the afterlife continued on in much the same way as their mortal one. They believed that the Ka, which is similar to a soul, must return to a physical body, which is the reason behind the mummification process. In case mummification failed and the body decayed, they left Ka statues in their tombs, which would serve as an alternate body for the soul. They were also buried with all of the same riches, tools, food, and furnishings that they had in their real life, believing that these things would carry on in their afterlife to be used. Because of this, they often had servants and members of their household, sometimes also of nobility, killed and entombed with them to continue serving with them in the afterlife. This ritual was often practiced by pharaohs, as they were seen as gods on earth. This belief made the practice more accepted and was also a further indication of a pharaoh's elite status and superiority over the people they ruled. Those sacrificed were convinced that the afterlife existed and that by being sacrificed, they too would rise up in status and class after they died. One famous example was a king who was buried with over 580 people. Retainer sacrifice was practiced between 3100 BC and 2900 BC before slowly dying out. It is also not unique to Egypt alone, as it has been discovered in many regions and cultures around the world. And that's it for this video. Thanks a million for watching. If you enjoyed, don't forget to hit that like button. I try and upload a similar creepy list every single week, so if you want to subscribe for that, you can. I'll leave a link down below to all of the footage used, music, and sources if you want to check that out, along with my social medias, Instagram, Facebook, and Twitter, all of which are DeBurk321. But like I said, that's all for now. As always, until next time.